Okay, so let's get started. The fight that's been mentioned that's going to be taking place on June 9th, something that you guys have been shooting for over at Top Rank, Shakur Stevenson versus Rafael Rivera. Is that likely to happen? Is that June 9th date look like it's going to be a possibility?
Yeah, well, that depends on the state, depends on the athletic commission, but we're making great progress. And again, these are not ordinary times. We have all the confidence in the world with the state of Nevada and with the Nevada Athletic Commission, and we're proceeding cautiously. It requires a lot of effort, which one wouldn't expect in the sport of boxing, like testings and quarantines, all areas that we're not really familiar with or haven't been familiar with, and we're learning on the fly. And we have our whole staff working with the commission doctors, with the site, to get this done. We believe we're on the road to getting it done for June 9th, and we're optimistic that it'll happen, but nothing is a certainty.
So the state that you'd like to have it in would be Nevada.
Well, yeah. I mean, our company is located in Nevada, and we're familiar with the people in Nevada, and we feel very comfortable launching this in Nevada, where our staff is and where we know the terrain, and we'll be doing these events once we start, hopefully June 9th, on a twice weekly basis.
Okay. Now,
in other words, 2 events every week.
That sounds great. Now, Dana White had mentioned that he put a 30-page safety plan into place, and he had to submit that to the Florida State Athletic Commission. Are you going to have to be doing something like that, or is it just you and your staff communicating with the doctors and the staff over at the Nevada State Athletic Commission? Do you have to put anything down in literature? How does that have to be put into place?
We already have. We're working with our protocol, with their suggestions, and it will end, I believe, with the Nevada official protocol, because obviously we don't want to hide this from other promoters. We would like this to be a template, not only for opening in Nevada, but to enable other promoters to open in other jurisdictions. So, I mean, we took the lead role in this, in getting this protocol done, and it's a continued work in progress, but I think it'll aid all promoters all over the country.
Now, I know you mentioned that some of the big fights would probably have to be postponed until a live audience, could be brought in, because obviously that would be lost revenue from the live gate, and you'd need that revenue to pay these large purses that these big fights would garner. What are your plans for these fighters that, like Pulev, for instance, and Tyson Fury, for instance, who have big fights lined up, but obviously they can't take place now? Do you have any plans to keep them busy, or are you just going to play it by ear? What are the plans for guys like Pulev, Teofimo Lopez, and Tyson Fury, who all had big fights lined up, and obviously now these fights cannot happen?
Well, the fights can happen, but they probably won't happen until the last quarter of this year. And they may very well not happen either in the United States or the United Kingdom. But there are other parts in the world which have really tamed the virus because they took precautions early on, which we didn't take here in the United States. We sat on our ass for 2 months, letting the virus get out of hand, and we're paying the price. And also in the UK, where they did a similar thing. But there are other places in the world, particularly in Asia, where they did take plans to deal with the virus, and their outbreak hasn't been anywhere near as serious as ours, and where the virus seems like it's under control, and where we believe they will be open for events with spectators a lot faster than we will. And so we look at those places. I know Eddie Hearn, who's in charge with putting together the Joshua Pulev fight, is looking at those potential sites, and we're looking at potential sites for a Fury Wilder fight. We're working very cooperatively with PBC. They know what we're doing, and we'll be consulting with them once the path is clear to do a Fury Wilder fight. And I'm optimistic that it'll happen this year.
Wow. So there'll be no interim bouts. These fights.
No interim bouts. No, none of that.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's talk about this whole step aside story, because this just seems to have been a rumor. Did anyone reach out to either you or MTK Global on behalf of Deontay Wilder, possibly stepping aside to make way for this Fury Joshua fight? Because there just seems a lot of talk being put out there, but no really concrete evidence that this was even a reality. Can you speak to this, please?
Directly the contrary. I mean, the Wilder people made it, when they saw these stories, made it known to us and to MTK that Wilder wasn't amenable to step aside, that he wanted to fight Fury again and gain revenge. So these stories about step aside were fantasies, and rather than being fueled by Wilder from the get-go reacted negatively to the idea of a step aside.
Okay. Now, I'm sure you're aware that Wilder had surgery on his left bicep, torn bicep tendon. Originally, the rematch was going to be in July, and then it was pushed back to October, and obviously now we're going to have to wait even longer. Is there any concern that Wilder will be ready because of the surgery? Do you envision that he'll be ready to fight, or do you think that he'll need more time to recuperate, and maybe you would push the fight back maybe to February or March of next year because of the surgery?
Quite the contrary. We were informed, I've been informed by the Wilder people that the original October date, which we all punted to from July for reasons other than any kind of injury, that date was acceptable and he could make a fight as early as that date. And so certainly November, December would be a no-brainer.
Okay. Now, Teofimo Lopez, Vasyl Lomachenko, what's the projections for that? Is that, again, something that you could take overseas if you had to?
No, I think that we would want to do that fight as soon as possible. Loma is over in the Ukraine, and we're exploring now a means for him to get back in the United States with his father and rest of his training staff. I know Lopez calls me all the time, and his management, that they're ready. We're not looking for any interim fights. We're looking to go right in to a Lopez fight, and we're looking to do it in the United States, and it may very well be that we would do it without spectators.
Okay.
I think the numbers there, while they might be high, are not like the numbers you have in a big heavyweight fight. So the gate is not as important as it would be in a Fury Wilder fight, where we took in 17 million at the gate last time.
Yeah.
So the fighters may have an adjustment. They may be working more on the upside on a pay-per-view event, but we'll get it done, and hopefully we'll get it done by September.
Now,
if we can get Loma and his people over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great if that could happen in September, because that's actually the fight that I was looking forward to the most this year.
Right. That was a lot of people.
Yeah, that was a great fight. Now, Terrence Crawford, what lies ahead for him?
Well, the first fight, what we're working on and hopefully can accomplish, is a fight that everybody wants to see, a unification match between Crawford and Manny Pacquiao.
Wow.
Or Crawford and Spence. I think Spence may want to take another fight before he fights Crawford, but I know Spence and Crawford have been talking. So again, we're going to move ahead with them. You can't put Crawford in other than a big fight. So got a Pacquiao, a Spence, maybe even change Porter. I mean, those are possible fights for Crawford. And again, there we're getting into an area where we probably need a live gate, so we may have to take that fight outside the United States.
That was my next question. Great. Okay. Let me see what else I have here. So what would be the next card that you may be looking at after the Shakur Stevenson Rafael Rivera fight? Is there any other fights that you could maybe announce now, or you want to just wait? Or?
No, we're not going to announce. All the announcements will be made by ESPN.
Okay.
Which will be doing this and so forth. But we have fighters that Jose Ramirez will be one of the fighters. Jamal Herring will be another champion. Oscar Valdez will be back in action. Jesse Magdaleno will be in action. The Maloney twins are flying over from Australia, and they'll be in action. So they'll all be. We're talking we're talking top level fights. In other words, at least we're going to do 5 fight cards, because we have to do programming. If the fights are on ESPN, a couple of the fights would be on ESPN Plus. So they want us to do 5 fight cards. So we'll have, like always, the main event and a co-main event, which are outstanding competitive matches. They'll all be competitive matches, but then we'll have a 4, maybe 2, 4, and 6 round fights with young guys like Jared Anderson and guys like that, and another good club 10-round fight on the card. So it'll be interesting. People will be able to watch all 5 fights, some on ESPN and others on ESPN Plus. But all 5 fights will be shown, and at first we were going to limit it to 4 fights, and then ESPN asked us if we could do 5, and we agreed. And when you add a fight now, it's not like, it requires testing of the participants, quarantines, all of that stuff that goes along with protections on COVID-19. And so it's not as easy as just adding a fight like we did in January or February, where it's very, very easy to just add another fight. Every fight that you add comes with complications regarding the requirements.
So will the fighters be tested during training camp all the way up until the fight? And will there be like a standby opponent if someone does test positive, and then someone else would have to step in and take that person's place?
No, that's why we're doing the 5 fights. Because
okay.
If you can't have standby, I mean.
Yeah.
But what would happen is, let's say if one fight fell out, well, then we'd have to go with 4 fights.
Oh, I understand. I got you. That makes sense. Okay. Well, Bob, it looks like you have a good plan in place, and I'm very excited to hear that you got a lot of boxing planned ahead, and it seems as though you got the ball rolling here, and I'm looking forward to it. That's all I got.
We're looking forward not only to us being back in action as early as June 9th, but we understand from PBC that they'll be up in action sometime in July or August.
I heard that.
And we want to encourage everybody to get back in action as soon as is possible in the state that they're going to put on the event. We want everybody to be safe and not jeopardize anybody, and yet give the public good fights and keep the sport of boxing alive.
Great. Sounds awesome. Well, Bob, that's all I got for now. Stay safe, and as always, thank you so much for the time, and I'm looking forward to it, and I wish you well.
Okay, good talking to you.
Good to you. Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.